Hi, friends. Welcome to Direct Impact Broadcasting. The network of growth and transformation presents S.O.S For Leaders, where your host, Tywauna Wilson, will be sharing leadership and personal growth strategies. Let's jump right in.
Welcome to S.O.S For Leaders. I am your leadership mentor and host, Tywauna Wilson. If this is your first time checking out this podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you are able to get some practical tidbits that you can use in both your personal and professional life. So I invite you to keep checking out this podcast. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for continuing to listen, subscribe so that you never miss another episode. All right. Today, we are going to be starting our series on imperfection and overcoming perfectionism issues. This is kind of a hot topic, especially depending on what area of your career you might be in. Perfection and dealing with those issues could be a huge thing. I recently did a presentation for a group of lab people with my fellow co-hosts of the Elaborate Topics podcast, and our session was about overcoming perfection. And it's funny because in the lab industry, we really can't make mistakes in our industry. If we make mistakes in our resulting, then that has a trickle down effect because then it starts to affect our patients. And so then it starts to kind of mess with you mentally because you're all about getting things perfect because that's what you were trained to do. But then when you think about other areas of your life and you carry that into it, it can be difficult and it can start to affect you. And so on this first kind of opening for this podcast series, today I want to challenge you to think about these questions as we go through them today on if you maybe you're thinking that I don't even know if I'm a perfectionist or not. So today we're going to talk about those questions to think about. When you hear the word perfectionist, what do you think about? What do you think it is? Chances are your first thought might be someone you went to school with, the person, they were the one who was always prepared in class. They worked ahead. They turned in every assignment and letter perfect and on time. They even looked very well put together and just looked perfect. There was never hair out of place. Their acne or skin they never seemed to have acne like the rest of us. They had flawless skin. And of course, what you never saw was the work it took to get there. Your so-called perfect person probably put in a lot of effort to get to where they were. You also never saw the internal struggle that person might have been going through and the stress and strain that came with trying to achieve this persona. In short, was that perfect person ever really happy? Trying to be perfect comes with some consequences. Perfectionism keeps us from enjoying life in the way it was meant to be savored. Perfection takes us further from true joy than we could have ever imagined. Yet still we strive for it. And then we teach our kids too to be perfect. And that has a trickle down effect in that they don't want to make any mistakes or afraid to make a mistake. So here's some things to think about. If you're worried about being a perfectionist, ask yourself these questions. Do you find yourself picking out the flaws in what you or other people are trying to accomplish? Do you set goals that are impossible to attain? And this could be setting goals that are unrealistic, setting goals with a time element that's not really realistic, setting goals that are physically impossible for you. A lot of times people set unrealistic goals with their fitness. That's one of the big things with health and fitness. I want to lose 40 pounds in a month. Some goals are just unrealistic or impossible to attain. Do you put off tasks, especially ones that you feel unsure of yourself? So if you know that you don't feel sure about something, you might procrastinate on it and put it off. Is it really hard to accept a compliment? Somebody compliments you on your hair is very nice. And you're like, oh, thanks. Or, your dress, I really like that dress. That's beautiful. And you're like, oh, this old thing. So do you find it really hard to accept a compliment? Do you bring up others' mistakes frequently, or even worse, beat yourself up for your own mistakes long after the mistake has ever happened? And I can admit I am guilty on that, especially if I have made a mistake and I think about it and replay it in my mind of what could I have done different, or man, I'm mad at myself for doing that. But you could spend a lot of time and energy into just thinking about that you're not even able to move forward. So, that's a question that you think about that, could be a sign that you could be a perfectionist. Do you find yourself worrying about what other people think, especially in regards to their approval? This could be in something like who you're dating. Do you worry about, if your parents are going to approve, if your friends are going to approve, what other people think versus your own happiness? Do you avoid trying new things because you're afraid of failure? I can tell you that today's youth are afraid of failure. And they may not try things because they're afraid that if they think that they might fail, they might not try it. So avoiding those things. Do you put yourself down a lot? That negative self-talk, those limiting beliefs. Have you been accused of being too modest, especially in regards to your own accomplishments? You're afraid to tell people what you're doing. You're just modest. You are out here knocking it out of the park, doing some of the impossible things, but yet you don't even want to take the credit. You just kind of modest about it. Do you find yourself redoing things because they weren't done right the first time? You made a mistake in your presentation, so you find yourself redoing it. You typed up your notes for your team and you found a typo or two in there. And so you find yourself retyping up the notes again. Do you find yourself, doing a lot of things over because they weren't right the first time? Do you spend a lot of time on projects because you need to get them right or perfect? Are you spending too much time thinking about it or tweaking it or finding the right images or anything like that? Just trying to get it just perfect. Do you spend a lot of time thinking about how you could have done something or said something better? Maybe you had to counsel an employee and thinking about that conversation of how it went. Could you have done something differently, said something differently? Are you constantly replaying conversations in your mind, or decisions you made in your mind, or actions that you took in your mind? If you find yourself answering yes to any uncomfortable amount of these questions, then you're not alone. The key thing is to remember this. There is no day like today to start making a change, to think another way, to make a change for the better. With this in mind, it's time for you to embrace imperfection. Let go of the old ways and accept the freedom to be found in being good enough. This is where true happiness really lies. So if you found that as I went through those questions that you were saying yes, 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 yes to a lot of those questions, Today is the day to embrace that it's okay. It's okay to embrace imperfection. There's this quote, and I'm not sure who the quote is by, but it says, "I am perfect in my imperfections, secure in my insecurities, happy with my choices, strong in times of weakness, and beautiful in my own way. I am myself." So if you are a perfectionist, you're going to enjoy this series where we talk about imperfection in leadership, in the workplace, and give you some ways or some steps to defeat perfectionism. So I hope you continue to listen in to each of the podcasts in this series around perfection and overcoming it. Please share this podcast out with somebody who could benefit from listening to this series from this show. You can find it on directimpactbroadcasting.com. And thank you so much for tuning in. It's going to be a good series. I look forward to having you on the next show. And until then, have an amazing day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of S.O.S For Leaders, where Tywauna shared nuggets of wisdom that you can use to win in life. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and connect on LinkedIn. And remember, the secrets of success in your life resides inside of you. When you know what your strengths are, you can utilize them to live an impactful and influential life.